So today we're going to be continuing to take a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. We are now on episode 41 of this series, and take a quick gander at this map and tell me what you see. Is that a completed province map by AdizzPro? Did I actually take the time to finish all the provinces? Yes, I finally did it. The province map is completed. Every single country in the world now has provinces, all the way from North America to South America over to Oceania. This thing is filled in and it's great. If you didn't see the live stream where I did it, what are you doing? It was super fun, but that was more than likely the last What If Civilizations stream that I'll ever do again, so if you missed it, then that kind of sucks. But anyway, for this episode, we have a lot of things to talk about. In the previous episode, we saw a lot of things happen. We saw the Cold War, of course, heighten with more nuclear bombs being built. We saw the Japanese Civil War. We saw the partitioning in Central Africa, and a bunch of other stuff. So if you haven't seen the last episode, make sure to go check that out. But yeah, if you guys do enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. All the support is greatly appreciated. And let's go ahead and get started with today's scenario. Oh, also we added major military bases. This is a work in progress. As you can see, obviously the whole map is not filled in, so don't expect this to be too much of a factor for the videos for a little bit, but it's a work in progress. So we're actually going to be starting over here in North America because we have a new economical union being formed. And this economical union will consist of a few states, including this pink country here, the orange one here, the gold one here, the green one here, which unfortunately will have the color a different color of green. No big deal though. The purple country here, and I think you guys can get where this is going. All right, so North America just economically unionized. Pretty cool. Every single one of these countries over here, which were mostly from the red team, the red Irish team, have unionized together. These guys are all peaceful with each other. There's no really big any like border disputes or any kind of beef like that. So the economical union is thus possible. There are some other countries that are interested in joining, but for now, this is all we got. Said countries include the Central Canadian, the Alaskan, and the Pacific Northwestern country. But like I said, they're not going to be joining anytime soon. But anyway, we're actually going to go ahead and stay on this layer because we're going over to the Old Empire. And here, they will be forming their own economical alliance, kind of as a counter to what the West African Union is doing over here in the African continent. Also, this is the Atlantic country, my bad. Or the Western African country, sorry. But the Old Empire wants to form their own economical alliance. And would you believe me if I said that I'm running out of shapes? Welcome to the Right Triangle Alliance. Yeah, that's great. So the countries that will be joining the Old Empire's new alliance are going to be, of course, their allies. So Norway joins it, as well as Iberia. The White Country joins it, as well as the Purple Country, which they're not an official ally of the Old Empire, like they're not in the alliance, but they do work closely with them and have a favorable view on them. And then we have this African nation joining. Remember, they joined the Square team in the previous episode, but now this is where things get a little bit dicey. They'll be getting this green country to join, as well as this gray country. For now, that's going to be it. However, their economical alliance does have a lot of interest around the world and serves as a good countermeasure for what the West African country is trying to do over here in West Africa. The African Union, or the Mediterranean country, is like in the process of joining this economical alliance, but not there just yet. I don't want to throw too many countries in all at once. Staying on the topic of economical alliances, and I promise this is the last one, the West African countries alliance will be getting one more member, and that is actually going to be the Dark Cyan team, who, as we know, is a former Triangle team member, former colonial power, former top 10 power, but is now aligned with the West African country, who is unaligned with the Old Empire, and these two kind of got beef. So now these guys are once again beefing with the Old Empire. This time though, there is kind of a safe haven, that is Russia. So if they want to be aligned with Russia, they could be. This also kind of heightens tensions between them and Iberia, but more on that later. Okay, goodbye alliance layer. Next, we'll be going down over here to Libya, and they're going to be doing something pretty smart. So you guys can probably see like the issue here, right? Like their capital city is like right there. So the smart thing to do in this scenario is to just simply move it to another city. The red team moves their capital further away from the encirclement that the Old Empire is imposing on them, which, if war were to ever break out, gives them a little bit more time before they meet certain doom. Okay, but you guys want wars, right? So now we jump back over to the purple team. These guys have been active as of recently. They have fought with the Old Empire before. They've done a lot of expanding. They split Italy with the Old Empire, and they're not really looking to slow down anytime soon. So they will go ahead and set their sights on their next target, which is going to be the Cyan team right here. This is actually like more like teal blue. But they will send an official declaration of war over to these guys, and unfortunately for these guys, they're a little outmatched. You see, the purple team is using equipment from the Old Empire. The Old Empire is directly supplying the purple team, and at this point, it's like, just go ahead and join the alliance officially. Like, What are we doing? But they will be doing no such thing and will instead send their troops into the capital province of the Teal team. Additionally, their navy will set out and capture Corsica, and up north they will start an offensive to encircle the capital city, and this goes extremely well as they meet little to no resistance. Eventually, they will cut in closer towards the capital city and take it. Simple enough. And from here, it's pretty much just purple team heyday. Like they're going crazy. They're not meeting much resistance. You know, they have a few issues up here in the mountainous regions of this area, but really there's not many people living there. So eventually the teal team will go ahead and just surrender over to the purple team, and we can go ahead and take a look at this peace treaty. Oh, you would have never guessed, huh? The purple team fully annexes the teal country, and all of a sudden the purple team is becoming quite big. Remember, use your noggins and go all the way back to the first couple of episodes of this series, right? The purple team was like kind of native to this area, and they're slowly starting to take it back. Now, of course, they're not going to be able to take all of it back because the old empire is kind of blocking them from the Italian peninsula and parts of Greece. So yeah, it's not possible, but you know, there's some points over here where, you know, go crazy maybe. But now moving down to southern Africa, we have a quick little event happening here, and it is, yes, another war, this time between South Africa and this green country over here. Simply, the South African country just states that it needs more land, needs more resources, and the green team is their best bet. Nothing too crazy about that, you know, that's just kind of how war happens sometimes. So they send their troops into this very weak country. Now remember, the South African, well actually, you don't remember because I didn't tell you in the video, but in the live stream, I kind of went over how the South African country is actually quite strong. And that's mostly due to the fact that they have been here for so long and they have capitalized on the pre-Suez Canal trade routes that go around Africa. So many trade outposts along southern Africa that really boosted their economies in the old times. And since then, they have flourished in the modern world, being a top trade destination for foreign powers. So with all of that money and hence population and now troops, they are very capable of taking out pretty much half of Africa if they wanted to. You know, they would get a little bit of trouble with Tanzania over here. But other than that, like, they would have a field day. They won't be doing that though. And in this peace treaty, of course, full annexation. Goodbye, capital city. And South Africa grows a bit stronger. Now, I do want to kind of shift their color a little bit, just so it's like, okay, not like that. Just so it looks like, I don't know, like more presentable in thumbnails. Because the blue colors, I do like them, but they're sometimes kind of hard to see. So I think I'll shift them to like this kind of tealish blue color, like light teal. Anyway, time for our daily nuclear bomb update. 28 rookie numbers. How about 39 and 10? The old empire now has an arsenal of 39 total nuclear bombs, 10 of which are not on their own soil, which means they added 5 more elsewhere. We'll take a look at where those are at. There are now 2 in this cream country, 2 more in Iberia, and 1 more in Norway, most likely in retaliation to Russia's invasion of Sweden. So the old empire and its allies just kind of buffed up the nuclear scene a little bit more, but of course, if one side does something, the other side also does something. So let's see how Russia buffed up their arsenal. Russia has officially surpassed the old empire in number of nuclear bombs. These guys are fiends for nukes. They are rapidly researching, whereas, you know, the old empire is still rapidly researching, but these guys are doing it on crack. They are going crazy with their nuclear research, and they have now officially surpassed the old empire, and this is sounding a lot of alarms in this country, along with, you know, all around the world, because most people saw the old empire as like the country, like the strongest in the world, like I guess the equivalent of the United States in modern day, and Russia as its own equivalent, or I guess the Soviet Union. And we all know that the United States was at certain points a lot stronger than the Soviet Union, but this is like if the Soviet Union all of a sudden became stronger than the USA. This is unexpected, and I'm not saying that they are stronger in like terms of military, but having more nukes is a little alarming, even though the Soviets had more nukes in real life. Still alarming, but also notably, they added 6 more nuclear bombs to their allies, so let's see where those are all at. That's 2 more in West Africa, that's 3 in the dark green team, and 1 in this little teal country right here. Alright, so the old empire is probably freaking out. And you know, I mean, it's not completely like wrong for them to be doing so. Like, you know, they're surrounded by nuclear bombs all of a sudden, but they also surrounded Russia with nuclear bombs, so this is totally like, it's allowed, but they're still going to freak out about it just a little bit. So yeah, nuclear bombs all over Eurasia, none in North and South America, none in Asia, or East Asia, I should say, none in Oceania. There are a few in Africa, but you know, that's just kind of probably not in Africa. It's more like probably on the coastal areas, which technically is still Africa, but not really. They wouldn't be used on Africa. They would be used on you. And I would imagine there's probably a pretty strong push by Iberia to get on equal grounds with West Africa. They're probably like, hey, more nukes, please. Okay, I don't know. They got 4 more than us, and 4 more can do a lot of damage, so, come on, let's pump out more nukes. Norway's chilling. They're not really dealing with anybody. The brown team stopped their nuclear program for a little bit. They're focusing on building up for something. Not going to say what. But as for China, we can go ahead and take a look at them. And, their program is still developing. They've added 4 more, so they're still nowhere near as, close to the capabilities of Russia and the old empire, but they are slowly starting to build up, and eventually they will get to that rapid acceleration phase, and they will take off much like these two are. So in this Cold War, it's between Russia, China, and the old empire, but right now it's mostly kind of focused on Russia and the old empire. That's because China is kind of lagging behind, but they are quickly approaching, they're catching up. Anyway, South Africa. That is not South Africa, South America. We have yet another war taking place. Now remember, the Civilization series has been relatively peaceful. I mean, no, it hasn't been, but war-wise and war count, it's been relatively peaceful. There's been a few threats of the world exploding to a billion pieces with nuclear obliteration, but aside from that, conventional warfare has been on the downfall until this episode, because all of a sudden there's a lot of wars happening all over the world. Turns out when superpowers are too busy fighting each other, you can get away with a lot more. So we come over here to the dark blue country, aka Brazil, for this series. Not actually Brazil, but I'm just going to call it Brazil since it's in the land that, where Brazil is in real life. They, well, they're not like too bad off, but let's take a look at the provinces. I preached this a lot in like the stream, the Civilization stream that I did on Wednesday. Size of provinces is a good reflection of the population density of the country. So if we were to get rid of the background, for example, I know this might hurt your eyes, I'm sorry, this will help, but as you can see, this is freaking cool, first of all. Second of all, my face is completely white from this, and my hair is, oh my, what is, but like I was saying, this is a good reflection of population density in the world. So Europe is very populated due to the small provinces that it has. The old empire is extremely populated. You can see how small the provinces are around the capital. We see that India is quite populated. China and Korea China and Korea are pretty populated. Parts of Africa are pretty populated. Over here, for example, over here near Nigeria, along the coastal areas for sure. This is random. I don't know if that's actually that populated. No, probably not. I just made a really small, okay, that's fine. So maybe not in all scenarios. South America, we can see that like the coastal areas of Brazil, they are quite populated, but the continent as a whole doesn't have too many people. And then North America is the weird one. They have population over here on the eastern coast, over here near like where California is in real life. I guess this would be like Los Angeles. Mexico looks populated, but then you turn on like the background map and you see that it's mostly due to the fact that there are a lot of terrorists here. Weird sentence. So if you're ever curious of like what the population density of the world is, here you go. This is like so cool to me. I don't know why, but I drew every single one of these lines, which is crazy. But I'm happy that it did. It was worth it. Anyway, Brazil wants more population. That's why I showed you that. And there isn't much population around them. You have this like teal country up here. They have a coastal area, but they might be hard to fight. Green country is not worth it. Pink country, not worth it. They could go down into this guy, but they might be strong or too strong. The orange country, they just got out of the war with the red team, so probably not best to mess with that right now, but they might be on the chopping block. You have the lime team, which you barely even border. So that leaves you with this guy. Let's invade them. And invade them they do. The Brazilian country will send their troops straight into the teal country in a surprise invasion. No declaration of war. They will immediately split towards these major cities. And this country is screwed. Yeah, so the theme of this episode is jumping countries that are way, way, way weaker than you are. Why not? No one's going to stop you. So they immediately spearhead down to the capital city. This teal country is in despair, and they eventually will be forced to surrender. Now, the red team was thinking about getting involved, and so was the orange team, but since the blue team appears to be wanting to expand rapidly, it's best that you don't get put on the chopping block. Specifically, the red team doesn't want that. The orange team, they might already be there. So that, it's better just not to escalate things further than they need to be. Or I should say, speed up your inevitable death. Anyway, peace treaty. Guess what? If you said full annexation, you're wrong. Just kidding, you're right. Get rid of that capital. You don't exist anymore. And now the Brazilian country is a little bit bigger. They have a little bit more population. Good news. Oh no, bad news, sorry. The religion of the country you just invaded is very different from the one that you have. Your religion stems from the red team / the old empires area in Mesopotamia. Their religion stems from Western Europe, where the brown team was. So, yeah. Well, actually, no, this is technically from Ireland, but Ireland got it from the brown team. So this is like the Western European religion. It kind of sets itself in North America, a little bit of South America, kind of like splodged all around the world, thanks to colonialism. The red religion here is kind of like, I guess, Islam in this world. I guess you could say the brown religion is like Hinduism or Buddhism, or I guess the orange one would be Buddhism. And then you have your different Central Asian religions, you know. It's cool. I think this map is cool. I wish I would have paid more attention to it earlier on in the series. If we ever do a season 2 of this, expect it to be way more detailed and way more better. I promise. It will only get better from here. And we're going to start actually in Western Europe, which has been very peaceful as of lately, until the purple team made itself known. Yeah, they expanded into Western Europe, and now there are a few countries that are slightly worried about their expansion. Of course, they're aligned with the old empire, they're not officially in their alliance, but they are aligned with them. Which means that if you mess with these guys, you might also be messing with these guys. And what do we know about these guys? Well, strongest country in the world. That's all you need to know. They're looking to expand westward and to kind of reunite their fractured empire, because remember, at the beginning of the series, the purple team was a pretty strong country. They had a lot of land. And we can take a look at the religion map, because now the religion map is becoming very important for multiple reasons, but mostly right now we're looking at Western Europe. So what do we know about this yellow religion here? Well, it is the religion of the purple team. They are the ones that spread it. And by looking at this religion map, we can kind of see where their empire was and what regions they're trying to take back. So of course, they want the whole Italian Union, but unfortunately for them, they're probably not going to get it, as the old empire holds a pretty good stake of it. Same thing could be said about some of the Balkans down here, you know, the coastal area of Albania. They're most likely not going to get that area back, but I think they could probably live without it. But once we look over here towards the west, we see a whole bunch of opportunity. You know, this red team here, the dark purple team, which actually stems from the purple team. They broke away from the purple team a very long time ago. But it even goes into Iberia down to the dark cyan team. Now this is where it gets a little bit more interesting, because the dark cyan team does have the same religion as the purple team. They are, thanks to that, you know, the purple team is the reason that the dark cyan team exists, I think. Might have to open the history book on that one though, because the dark cyan team is really old. I honestly can't remember, but it's not a bad assumption. So purple team is obviously looking to unite their people, or I guess their religious peoples. And hey, this red country right here, they're in the way. And also, they're unaligned. They're not in any official alliance. So the purple team will go ahead and start their invasion. Now, the red team is a former part of the brown team up here. The brown team has claims over the red team. You know, of course, they lost it in World War II. It's been here for a few years now, but the purple team wants it. You know, historically, this is their land before it was the brown team's land. But the brown team isn't too happy about this, especially after the purple team cuts this country off from the coast. So the brown team is going to threaten the purple team, saying, hey, leave this country alone because it's our country, it's our claim. And if you take it all, well, we might just have to declare war and possibly use one of our nukes on you. And the purple team looks at this and, well, they laugh because, once again, aligned with the old empire, and that's not a number to mess with. No, that's 39 nukes. I don't think the old empire would use them, but, you know, protecting an ally, or I guess an acquaintance, you know, it's kind of important sometimes, especially when they're in your economical alliance. So the old empire comes over and they're like, hey, don't do it. And the brown team's like, okay, fine. How about we do this instead? How about we partition the red team between me and you? I have claims over this land. You have claims over this land. Can we make this work? Let's look at the religion map. Yeah, not realistically, but a new deal is opened up. One that has economical implications. The purple team, the old empire, and the brown team kind of worked this one out. Now remember, the old empire and the brown team go way back. Of course, the brown team used to be the strongest country in the world, and the old empire came about, and the brown team lost World War II, yada, yada, yada. Now it's fractured. They aren't really that close anymore, but there was a time period, I think after World War I, where they were relatively close to each other, or maybe before World War I, where they were relatively close. They had friendly relations. They weren't ever allies or anything like that, but that did exist. That was a thing for, you know, a time. And I think the people of these countries most likely have like an unfavorable view of each other. But since, you know, that historical friendliness was there, it may not be as bad as, per se, you know, relations between the old empire and the dark green country. That is pure hatred. But the old empire is going to actually walk in. The old empire is going to actually walk into the room with the brown team and the purple team and be like, yo, I have an idea. In order to kind of bring peace to Western Europe and to stop any further straining of relations, I think we should propose a treaty of which makes everyone happy. And both of these countries buy in, and then the old empire goes around and they invite the French country to the conference. So now we have these Western European and I guess Eurasian powers, Afro-Eurasian powers, discussing peace and kind of cooperation in Western Europe. The old empire wants to ensure that if a war ever does break out between them and Russia and China, that they don't have any problems elsewhere in the world. and that includes Western Europe, the brown team could be a thorn since they have nukes. So what do we see out of this new treaty? Well, first of all, the surrounding neighbors of the red team all jump them. That includes the purple team and the brown team. What is happening? That includes both the purple and brown and green teams. So there is a joint military operation to get rid of them. And then we have the Conference of Peace, in which this country is divided up. And that partitioning of this country will look something like this. Now, the brown team isn't too excited about this. As you can see, they got the least amount of land, and even to an extent the purple team isn't too happy about it because they wanted the whole thing. They're not going to be getting the whole thing, but there are some positives to that. They're negotiating with the old empire and all these other countries to hopefully bring about sustaining peace in Western Europe, and a small price to pay for that is just not getting as much land as you want, which I think the purple team, they are kind of aggressive in their expansion, but I think in the grand scheme of things, they would be okay with it. So let's go ahead and color these claims in. France gets that, the brown team gets this, and the rest goes over to the purple team. So these are our new borders of Western Europe. But yeah, step 1 is complete. We have, number 1, removed the red country from existence. No one really liked those guys anyway. And number 2, we are now looking at the economical and future kind of implications of this treaty. So first of all, and most importantly, the brown team just joins the old empire's economical alliance. That's nothing too big, right? Immediately after this happens, Russia is like, oh shit, because that's not supposed to happen. That's not good. You don't want a nuclear power getting friendly with the old empire. Number 2, what we have happening here is, first of all, the brown team joins the economical alliance, which is one thing. It's not a currency alliance, so there's no official obligation to change your currency, whereas the Green Star Alliance, that is an obligation to change your currency. And the same thing for the trapezoid. Yeah, these guys have to change their currency. So pretty much every other economical alliance in the world is a currency change economical alliance. But this new right triangle one, that is not a currency change. You don't have to change your currency to be in this economical alliance. But the purple team will get a discounted percentage off imported goods from the brown team for a certain amount of time. You guys can make it up for yourselves. If you want it to be a million years, sure. If you want it to be 1 second, go ahead. It's up to you guys. I think the average would probably be like 5 to 10 years. Once again, that interpretation is up to you guys. But the purple team gets discounted goods. And now as for the French team, they are being forced to get rid of the triangle team. Interesting, kind of weird aspect of this peace treaty, but they go ahead, get rid of the Triangle Alliance, which gets rid of their obligation to defend the Dark Purple team. May God be with you, because someone is hungry. But in exchange for, getting rid of their alliance, they are then guaranteed independence, which means they are in a defensive pact with the brown team. So basically the French country just traded its ally for a new one, being the brown team. And to kind of symbolize this defensive pact between the two nations, oh, there's not really a shield emoji. Actually, this is kind of close if I flip it. Yeah, there we go. But to symbolize this defensive pact, which is not the same as an alliance, I'll be putting this blue shield on the border between the brown team and the French team. Eventually this will expire, but for now it is there. That is kind of what everyone gets from this treaty. The purple team gets its way in the way that, they get land still. They get discounted goods from the brown team, and they also kind of maybe have a route to getting this land back in the future. The green team gets land from this, and they also get protection from the brown team. And the brown team from this gets access to the old empire's economical alliance and gets a little bit of land. But they do also get the obligation to protect the French country. So that's kind of like this circle here. It was a big step for international politics, especially on the old empire's front, since a lot of countries view them as imperial. But now Russia's going to look at this and they're going to be like, yo, not cool. So instead of, maybe forming an economical alliance or doing some kind of negotiations, they're going to declare war on a country. And the country they're going to be declaring war on is this seafoam green beautiful color country over here, also known as Siberia. This country is terrified, and they're going to cry out for help, saying, hey, international community, please do not let these guys nuke us, because they will. They have done it before. They did it to our neighbors. We are terrified, and Russia will right out the gate say, hey, we're not going to nuke you. Calm down. We're just going to invade you and, do all the horrible conventional war things. We're not going to, disintegrate you or anything like that. So that promise is made, and it's kind of respected by the international community, which is sad because, this is still a conventional war. They're declaring war. They're going to kill a lot of civilians in this war. But since they're not using nukes, it's okay, right? Good. Anyway, Russia's invasion of the seafoam green country, also one of my favorite countries, begins. They will mainly focus in over here in the radiated areas, interestingly enough, hoping to achieve mutant status. Not really, but that would be kind of funny. But the Russian army sees little to no resistance in their push through this empty country as they reach over to this lake, which I know the name of, but forgot. And since I don't care enough, I will not be looking it up. But the Russian army is having a lot of success, and they near the capital of this country. And this is the point now where the Cold War gets a little interesting, because the old empire will start supplying this country with troops, not their own troops, volunteer troops, which are not equipped with their own equipment. And that's because they don't want the Russians to get a hold of some of their secret technology. So they won't send them with the newer stuff, they'll send them with some older old empire equipment. In addition to that, they also send that equipment over to the government of this country, basically sending them their old used stuff and some troops in hopes of protecting them. And when these guys eventually do arrive, they actually serve as a pretty good counteroffensive against the Russians, now going across the lake and taking back some vital areas. So looking at like the major cities of this country, there are actually quite a few, and it doesn't make too much sense because, you know, there's some up here, and really this is like a frozen wasteland of nothingness, so not very livable. I might actually just like go ahead and like erase some of these kind of cities. Just a few, not too many though. But the counteroffensive carried out by the Seafoam Green Country is successful. They take back one of their major cities and are threatening the Russians in other areas, even taking back yet another major city. But once the Russians start a spearhead up north, capturing this major city and capturing a few other in the central part of this country, things start to collapse. And eventually, their counteroffensive is all for nothing as Russia takes back both of these two major cities, which also happen to be two of their most populated cities. The most populated is their capital, followed by this one, then this one, then this one. So losing these two is big, not good. And if they lose this one, they might be screwed. And it looks like that might be happening though, because this spearhead is taking a turn down south, and Russia is rapidly advancing both the capital city and this city from the north. Okay, so it looks like this country may not last. They're losing the war to Russia, and if we take a look at this war without the provinces, not looking good. But it can always be worse, right? Yeah, of course. China joins the war, not on the side of Russia, but on their own side. This is devastating. Very many Chinese troops, I can't tell you how many, but a lot, cross the border and instantly start a very large-scale one frontline invasion of the Seafoam Green Country. Also, unironically love the name of the color, Seafoam Green. It just sounds like good. I guess you could also say it's like mint, like a mint color, but I think Seafoam Green is just more satisfying. With China's invasion of this country, the old empire will go ahead and stop sending volunteers, stop sending equipment, because all hope is lost with this thing. It is falling apart very quickly. Remember that really populated city I was telling you about? Yeah, the Russians just got it. And the battle of the capital city is underway as Russian troops enter the province and encircle the city. Elsewhere, Chinese troops are pushing toward the Russians, but aren't really too willing to engage, so they kind of keep their distance from each other, leaving this kind of no man's land in between. Remember, this Cold War is not just between the old empire and Russia, it's also between Russia and China and the old empire. It is a three-way Cold War, also known as a tripolar system Cold War. But as this little buffer zone is kind of just happening over here, we will continue to see China push around and take as many major cities as possible, kind of impeding on Russia a little bit, who might be a little bit salty about their taking of major cities, since capturing cities gets you a little bit more war score, which actually isn't a real fundamental philosophy. War score doesn't exist. It's a video game term for a lot of mapping games. But everyone who watches this channel probably has a pretty good idea of what war score is and what I mean by that. Basically, more cities means more land that you can take in a peace treaty. But not before Korea gets involved. Yeah, Korea, they're not going to pass up on this opportunity. Let's be real. This land was, I believe, once theirs. I could be wrong, but Korea is so old that I'm having trouble remembering the history of my own series. But these guys are not involved in the Cold War at all. They are a neutral power, just kind of focusing on themselves, doing their own thing, taking advantage of a distracted China, as we saw with their war on Japan and any possible future expansions such as this one. Of course, this one might be a little bit more dangerous since they are in, a direct confrontation with China. They're not at war, but like their troops are talking to each other with guns probably in their hands. Not the best thing that you want to be happening. But as long as you're chill, just be a chill guy, you're probably good. But Korea is more focused on just taking this southern region here. They're not too interested in going up into Siberia, because who would be? They already have a majority of these islands, so there isn't much, logic in invading into Siberia. They'll take a little bit of this coastal area just because they can. But other than that, they check out of the war, and the Seafoam Green Country no longer has any major cities, so they will be forced to surrender over to Russia, China, and Korea. This is the worst jumping of all time. Korea is probably a top 20 power, maybe top 15 power. China and Russia, number 2 and number 3. This guy, outside of the top 20. It's just horrible. what these countries are doing to other countries nowadays. This is the final map, and this is it without cities. Looks kind of cool, but let's go ahead and get into this peace treaty. All right, so let's go ahead and break down this peace treaty. And first of all, I gotta say, there's gonna be some new provinces created. So, of course, provinces on this world map are not like final, they're just there. And if a country were to take over another country, they do have the right to rearrange or create or divide up those provinces. So, in the case of Russia, they will be creating one new province that is a city-state. If you saw the live stream that I did last week, you would know that there was a lot of city-state provinces created. This is no different from the other ones, and Russia mostly created this just so they can get access to this major city here. So if we go ahead and get rid of the province map, you can see that this city is a part of this province, which China got in the peace treaty. But since Russia had more war score than China, they can go ahead and claim this city and take it away from China and create its own province, as to where they don't have to take this entire province here, they can just take the city. Similar things happening over here. Korea doesn't want this entire province, they just want the southern half of it. So in their peace treaty with the seafoam green country, they just go ahead and create a new province and will take the southern half of it. Same thing over here. They don't want this entire province, so they'll only take the southern half by creating a new province in the region and allowing for the seafoam green country to keep the rest. So now we can go ahead and color in the claims. Russia gets all of that and these islands. And of course they get their city. China will get all the land over here in Mongolia, and Korea will get all their claim over here in the Siberian region. All right, here is our new map of Eastern Asia, and it's getting a lot less diverse over here, I will say that. Now the seafoam green country does still exist. However, they're not in the best of spots after losing all of these cities and half their population. Their capital city is under constant threat from both China and Russia, and yeah, they also lost a lot of coastal access from Korea, so things are definitely not looking too good, but they will stick around for now. Anyway, we now go over to the grand, great, and of course magnificent country of Somalia/Ethiopia. Fun fact, Somalia, real life, not actually a real country. Changed my mind. Anyway, these guys have quite an issue. Let's take a look at religion. Yeah, that's not good. So the country is divided between 3 different religious groups, both, well, I don't know if, I kind of want to call them by like what they kind of are. Like red is kind of Islam, but it's not Islam. But it like kind of like takes the shape of Islam, kind of in comparison to real life. But it isn't Islam, so I'm not going to call it Islam. But we have these 3 religions here: the Western European one, the Mesopotamian religion, and of course the Indian religion. And they're all kind of smushed together in this great country known as Ethiopia/Somalia. Same thing sort of in this scenario. And when you have that many religions kind of, buttoned up against each other, not so good things happen. Just ask this. So the teal country here is gonna kind of just start falling apart. More so, there's going to be a bunch of separatist movements. So for example, Group 1 appears out of nowhere. This gold team is in strong favorability of the brown religion, as we see on this map here. They have a few groups dotted about, but this government is all for creating a new state, of which subscribes to, of course, the brown team religion, which is shared amongst a lot of this part of Africa over here in the southeast of the continent. But that's not all. The actual government of this country is more so of like a red team kind of religion, since their capital is over here, but they're not like really super sold onto it. If anything, the government's very neutral in religion, which turns out you can't be neutral on it because you're fighting yourself now. Anyway, now we see another group pop up in protest to the current government. This one is focusing on just doing what the other one's doing and creating a new state that is focused on one religion and one central religion alone. Okay, so now the government is like, whoa, we're gonna need help with this, but it gets worse. Another group pops up. This group is fascist, our first ideological difference in the world other than democracy and monarchies. What is a fascist group doing in Africa? Well, fascism is mostly driven on hatred, and as you can see, there's a lot of diversity in this region, so it can happen. But these guys just want to get rid of everybody and just kind of make a new state that is not focused on religion and is instead just focused on like getting rid of other religions that aren't the red team's religions. So this country and this country have the same religion. The teal one and the purple one, although they're fighting against each other, they have the same religion, but they have different ideals. This one is more focused on like a grouping of religions under one nation and unity. This one is just getting rid of all those other stinky religions because ours is better. But it gets worse. Okay, so as you can see on the religion map, the red religion is huge, but it's not all the same color. So the core red religion, this is the OG Mesopotamian religion. This lighter kind of reddish color is an offshoot of that religion. Now, it is kind of like you have Catholicism, or maybe I should say like Western and Eastern Orthodox Christianity, and then those all have their own like trickle down branches. It's kind of like that, but there really wasn't a schism, so they never split apart. It's just more so of this part of the world developed the religion differently, and this part of the world developed the religion also differently. So these two aren't the same, these two aren't the same, and these two aren't the same, but they have the same values and beliefs, just, you know, maybe different ways of practicing them, different ways of believing in them. It's still the same fundamental religion, just slightly different. But that still causes problems sometimes. I mean, just ask Western Europe and their Christianity. Like, that caused a lot of issues, not gonna lie. So another group pops up. This one focused on uniting a new state under this pink religion, but also with unitary beliefs. So these guys have the same philosophy, kind of different religions. These guys have the same religion, way different philosophy. That's why, you know, this state has divided into three. And this region, you know, mostly is under the same religion, but differences in philosophy is changing that. So here we have our first ethno-religious mess, conflict of a war. And if this isn't treated right, this could very easily turn into a way bigger war. Now, you might be thinking, well, this is pretty simple, you know, the old empire will probably be helping out the Teal country and they'll be able to wipe out all these other rebel groups. No, not that easy. Because if you look at the religion map one more time, you notice that a majority of Eastern Africa over here subscribes to the same religion as this movement does, and they would be more likely to support these guys. Also, India. Yeah, they are very likely to fund these guys in their independence movement. Western Europe probably doesn't care too much about these guys, since, you know, the closest country to them, in Europe at least, is like the Iberian/French country. They probably don't care. I mean, of course, this country was the colony of the Iberian one, so maybe they care, but more likely to care is like South Africa. These guys share a religion with them, and, you know, they might be supporting them. The old empire is likely going to be supporting these guys, and as for like everyone else, like this country right here, which is an ally to the old empire and in their economical alliance, is maybe likely to support the yellow one. So you can kind of see how this could get a little bit messy, very messy. Fortunately for this region though, and very fortunately in fact, there is no Russian or Chinese religion there. It is simply just like the European/Afro-Eurasian religions. So that's good. That will stop any escalation. But this war very well could start a huge war in Africa, but we'll have to see. There are 4 different religions, well, technically 3 different religions and an offshoot of a religion in this region, and that has created this beautiful mess right here. So we have the original country right here. These are the guys, this is the official government. They are the ones that are experiencing the civil war. Then we have this kind of dark cyan country right here. They are from the purple religion, sorry. We have this yellow group here. They are from the pink team religion. We have this gold group here. They are from the brown team religion. And finally, we have the purple team, which is also a part of the pink religion. Now, what is the differences between the pink religion? Well, let me go ahead and explain it. So the yellow one wants kind of a unitary state that welcomes all religions under a different government from this teal country. That's what they believe in. Now, this purple country, on the other hand, is, well, they're fascist. And they also hate every religion that isn't theirs, and that creates a big issue because, as you can see, they have a lot of different religions within their territory, from the purple to their own religion, which is the pink one, and a lot of the brown religion. So that's going to create some issues. Genocide. Now, genocide in this series is something that has never really been mentioned. I'm sure it's happened, just like I haven't talked about it. And it also was probably never relevant enough. I'm not saying that genocide has never happened before, but this is the first case of genocide, or maybe I should say ethnic cleansing, that is going to be important for the series. Because the purple team is starting to kill people who don't follow the pink religion, and that's not good because that's going to make a lot of people angry. So they're killing people from the purple and the brown religion, and that's going to have implications across the world. You can see the brown religion is very prevalent over here in the Indian Ocean. The purple one is pretty worldwide, but it does stem from Western Europe. But at the same time, they are fighting a civil war amongst themselves. There are like 5 different groups here fighting against each other. It's going to be a whole mess. But before we get to that, I do want to say something real quick. I do want to take a moment to talk about the series and kind of get some input from you guys. So if you aren't interested in this, skip ahead. If you are, hear me out. So as you guys know, I kind of make up this series as I go. There's really no set path that I have chosen. There's specific events that I like have benchmarked that I want to cover. Like right now we're in the Cold War era. We had the World War II, World War I eras, colonialism era, so on and so forth. Right now we're in the Cold War era. We've been in the Cold War era for a few episodes now. It's probably one of our longer eras. My question to you guys right now is that A, do you want me to keep the current pace of the Cold War? Or B, do you want me to hurry up and get to the next era, whether that's World War III or something else? Now, I know what happens. I know how this ends. So basically what I'm asking, do you guys want to see the Cold War ending sooner rather than later? At my current pace, I would say the Cold War is going to end probably in January, and that's mostly because there needs to be a little bit more build up for the ending of it. But if you guys do want to see it sooner rather than later, I can go ahead and cut out some of the stuff that I have planned in order to deliver that to you. I saw a few comments talking about the pacing, so I did want to bring that up. Remember, this is your guys' series. I pretty much thrive off of your guys' suggestions. That's how this whole map has pretty much come about, apart from like the post-colonialism states. I had to draw that in, obviously. But the storyline and stuff, that is kind of shaped by both of us, and certain events around the world are shaped by you guys. So do just let me know. But now back to our mess of just everything. So what we see happening in the purple team, like I said, is an ethnic cleansing of all religions that aren't the pink team religion. And this is pretty much fueling fire everywhere. A lot of the brown team religions, which if we take a look at the religion map, is most of India and a lot of East Africa. These countries are not happy about this, and some of them are threatening to get involved. Those countries include the Tanzanian country over here and the orange country up here. Now the issue is, of course, they don't actually border the purple country, so that probably won't happen, but these guys need to watch their back. Now let's get to the fighting, because everyone likes fighting. So almost immediately, and I'm sorry if you were rooting for these guys, the yellow team is going to get absolutely obliterated. It's not their own fault. They're just located in probably like the worst region. Like they're right in the middle of it. So yeah, they just kind of get messed up almost immediately. And of course, there's still going to be some infighting. So the purple team does take over one of these brown team pockets over here. But the yellow team is almost immediately eliminated, and they actually end up surrendering over to the original government, which means they fill that space. However, there's no troops there, so it really kind of ends up going to everyone else in the area, which creates this beautiful mess of a map. Now we have a four-way war over here in Ethiopia. Or I guess I'm just going to start calling it the Horn of Africa, because that is exactly what it is. But our next stages of this war include the purple team's eradication of these pockets of different religions, and horrible, disgusting crimes against humanity are happening in these pockets. And eventually it's too much for the world just to sit there and watch. India will start to supply the rebels over here, and they will start to also supply the Tanzanian country in hopes that they will join the war and get these guys out of here, because, well, they're going to make this map all pink if we don't do something about it. Which, you know, if you're a part of the pink team religion, you might support that. Why would you support genocide or ethnic cleansing? Those two things are not the same thing. Genocide and ethnic cleansing, they are defined differently. I don't know if I want to call this a genocide or an ethnic cleansing. I think I'm going to call it ethnic cleansing, because it's more so focused on getting rid of a group because they aren't you, which is cleansing. Call it what you want, though. They're killing a lot of people. Anyway, the teal country over here, they're going to go ahead and try to get support from the old empire. However, the old empire kind of says that, hey, we're not too interested in getting, you know, involved in your big religious mix-up. If you take a look at our country, we actually have, well, we're mostly red team religion, but also we house other religions. We actually have land that is subscribing to that religion. So we'd rather not get involved in this, because we don't want to piss our own people off. So we're going to sit this one out. So the old empire is out on helping out the teal team, which makes them a little bit mad, because that's really the only country that could help them. There's not a single other red team country in the world, except for like maybe the Farmers Union to an extent. They're a little bit of everything. They're a very diverse country, so that means that they would probably also not help. Okay, that's not good. What about the Dark Cyan Team country? They are a purple religion, so they're going to try to get help from any purple countries. They go to Western Europe. Western Europe is not interested. Neither is their former colonizer, the Iberian team. North Americans could care less. Our only hope really is going to be South Africa. Now, what does South Africa think about this? Well, South Africa is actually going to go ahead and say, hey, we will actually support you. We'll send you weapons. We'll send you volunteer troops. We hope that you can win. But they're not too interested in the conflict overall. They just go ahead and declare their support. Whereas it's different from India, because India is interested because their own people, or I guess their members of their religion, are being genocided or cleansed. So they they care a little bit more. Now, as for the gold team here, like I said, they're supported by India, a lot of different countries in Africa. So let's take a look a little bit more at this conflict. In the first couple of days, the original government of this country does pretty well in their fighting. They take a lot of land from the purple religion country, or I guess I'm just going to call it what they actually are. So they take a lot of land from the dark sign country, and they make advances into purple and gold territory. All is going well for the government until their president is shot. Yeah, their leader is assassinated, and this leads to a little bit of a political crumble. Over the next coming weeks, they will lose all gained land, and the other forces will start to push back against them. And it's looking like these guys may not survive. But guess what? They're not going to survive. Why? Well, the old empire just came in and they just cleaned them up. Yeah, okay. The world looks at the old empire and they're like, really? First of all, you came out and said that you would not, get involved in this conflict. That's one thing. Second of all, you just beat back your own religion. Like, these guys have the same religion as you. That's kind of weird. Not sure why you do that, but whatever. You're the old empire. We're not going to touch you. We can't touch you because you're too strong. So now we have a three-way conflict. We have the fascist, we have the gold team, and we have the dark cyan team. So let's take a look at what happens here. Well, the gold team is getting a lot of funding and a lot of help from these other African countries. So they are doing very well against the purple team. But the West African country is also doing well against them. But then something weird happens. Instead of invading them further and possibly wiping them out of the war, they start to shift their focus into invading the territory of the gold team. And this is really strange because if you take a look at the religion map, you'll see that they pretty much have all the territory they need to unite their religion. So why are they advancing into the gold team? Well, behind closed doors, these two countries came together and they were like, hey, I hate you, but let's do something here. We're gonna work together to get rid of the gold team because they have the biggest advantage against us. They're receiving a lot more funding than we are. The purple team isn't even being funded. Actually, they're going to be, getting troops, and eventually, if they stick around for too long, there's a chance that this Tanzanian country joins in. And if they join in, they're going to clean up this whole mess, and we really don't want that to happen. So let's work together instead, and that's exactly what they do. The dark cyan and the purple team create a coalition against the gold team. And this pretty much spells defeat for them. They are beaten back, and most of the country ends up falling over to the purple team, which is not what you want to see if you are a member of the brown religion. However, the other countries in that religion were slow to respond. India and Tanzania never got involved, and their resources and supplies that they sent to the gold team are now being used by both of these countries. So good job at failing. Good stuff. So this war was well, it wasn't very long. If you thought it would be long, you were wrong. Just kidding, you were right. This is the first war in a series of wars that are probably going to take place in this region in Africa. Is it Cold War exclusive? No, not necessarily. This might go on past the Cold War. So if you're worried about pacing, there you go. Let's take a look at what this region looks like after the peace treaty. All right, let's take a look at this peace treaty here. So I'll go ahead and break it down for you guys. The old empire will be getting this northern coast over here, completing kind of their complete control over this whole Red Sea area, except for this, but that doesn't really matter. But that's not necessarily the greatest thing for the old empire. They're becoming a little too big for their own good. They can't really deal with their own capacity in terms of land mass. So they're probably gonna have to stop doing that, or you might just, explode. Now down here, we see the dark cyan country. They get all of the western or eastern part of the Horn of Africa. They create themselves a nice little country. However, the elephant in the room is the purple team getting all of this land. That's a lot, and probably not a good thing if you don't like fascism. They're gonna go ahead and shift their color into the gold color. This is not the gold country. These are the fascists. I just think that gold kind of fits this region a lot better than any other color would. So that's why they are this color. This is not the brown religion. This is the pink religion, even though that the pink religion is probably in the minority now. But it happens. It happens. They're not going to be in the minority for much longer because the ethnic cleansing will continue. Yeah, the world is really worried about this, but there exists no United Nations. There is no big international stage where each and every country can come together to sort things out. Therefore, yeah, that's not good. All right, so now that our conflict over here in the Horn of Africa is finished, we can take a look at something else, and I think we should take a look at nuclear bomb numbers because there has been a few more bombs added since then. I totally didn't do a clip of me doing this earlier that ended up getting undone during the peace treaty. Yeah, my bad. But it's fine. We can go ahead and update them again. So Russia will go from 40 nuclear bombs all the way up to 62 with 18 bombs over soil, which means they have 7 bombs they need to add in other countries. 6 of them will end up going to the green team, which is very concerning if you are the old empire. And an additional one will go to this green country, making them have 2 now. So they kind of beef up their border over here in Central Asia, which of course is right next to the old empire. Now, what about the old empire themselves? How many nuclear bombs have they added? Well, that's actually already here. Not sure what happened, but they are, yeah, they're at 52 and 15. I'm not sure what happened to my map. Oh, I see. Okay, so they have 52 total bombs, 15 overseas, or in other territory, I mean. And now it's time to update their outside territory nukes. So they will be adding 5 more bombs, and all 5 of them will be given to the Farmer Union. I mean, the white team. I gotta remember to not call them that anymore because that's not what they are. But they received 5 bombs from the old empire, of course, right on the border of Russia. So that is why that happens. Now over to the brown team, they've started building nukes again, and they now have a grand total of 10. So they've added 3 more. And then over here to China, they have 12. Well, that number has now gone up to 30. They added 18 more bombs, which is the most out of any country. No, Russia added more. Second most out of any country. They added a lot. How about that? None of them are in their allies' territory, though. Something to note, kind of maybe signals that there isn't as much tension between China and these two as there is tension between these two alone for now. I mean, they did just gain a border with each other, so that could mean something in a few episodes, or not. Who knows? Oh, this radiation dot here is probably not here anymore. That radiation is probably not as bad as it was when the nuke was dropped, so we can go ahead and get rid of that finally. And now what do we do? Well, it's time to kind of make Africa even more interesting than it already is. I think that's fair. Let's go down to South Africa here. They are going to do something pretty smart. They're going to create an economical alliance. Now, of course, there is already an economical alliance or two in Africa. The old empire has theirs in Eastern Africa. The Atlantic African country, they have theirs in West Africa. So now it's time for one in South Africa. They create this alliance, and it is a currency-based alliance, which means that if you join this economical alliance, you must convert your currency to the currency of South Africa. Who wants to join? Oh, a lot of people do. They end up adding a lot of members. They get this purple country over here where Angola is. And they get this dark blue country right up here. And they get this yellow country over here. As well as Madagascar. Hey Madagascar, congratulations for doing something. I don't know what your flag looks like apparently. Have you watched my most recent video? Did you watch the flag video? Go watch the flag video. I know you haven't. Go watch it right now. Okay, so new economical alliance in Southern Africa. This is cool. So what are we gonna do with this? Oh, no, okay, you don't have to do that. Okay, so South Africa is gonna invade this country on the north of their border. Can I tell you why? No, I couldn't. Their justification most likely is resources. But yeah, this guy doesn't last very long, and they eventually get fully occupied by South Africa, and in their peace treaty, they no longer exist. End of story. It's a sad day for South Africa. Oh, that one. I mean, the region, not this one. This one's having a good day. I'm sure they won't continue to conquest North. Surely not. But now we head back to Europe. A lot of things happen in Europe, and a pretty bad thing's gonna happen in Europe. You guys have been complaining about a lack of Daily Britain updates. I thought we preferred peace around here, right? Okay, fine. The brown team will declare war on the blue English country on the basis that they attacked a naval port of theirs and they blew up a bunch of their ships. Basically, Pearl Harbor 2.0. The blue team is gonna come out and say, hey, we did not do that. That is cap. The brown team, being all powerful and nuclear like they are, they're gonna be like, yo, are you sure you want to say that? Blue team is like, okay, let's fight. So they start fighting. And the blue team here, they're not that strong. And the brown team is a nuclear power, a great power, top 10 power. Yeah. Yep. They're going to make a landing and they're going to do a lot of moving. Yep. Just something. Yep. Yeah, there goes Cornwall. And, oh, yep, there goes that. They're cut in half now. And, oh, there's the capital. But before the brown team can finish off the blue team, the red team jumps in. They're like, hey, let me connect my land. Brown team's okay with that. They're like, whatever, it's fine. And they finish off the blue team country, and we can take a look at a peace deal. And in this peace deal here, we have a couple things happening. So first of all, the Irish country connects her land as promised, and the brown team will take this bit of England. Now what about the rest of it? Well, since you guys love our daily Britain updates so much, we're going to be creating a bunch of new countries. First of all, we have Cornwall. Hi, Cornwall. Then we have ourselves a new yellow country up here in the north, a purple country over here in the center area, and a pink one down here in the south. The brown team will pretty much just break up the union of British states and set them free, and that's probably not a good idea, but that's what happens. Capital city there, and a capital city there. You already have one, and the issue now is you don't have any major cities. When you don't have a major city, what do? You pray to God that you get one. And then if you're lucky enough, a random city will spawn out of the sky, and you can go ahead and upgrade that to your capital city. So there we go. Congratulations. Hey, you guys wanted this, okay? Look at this. This is horrible. You did this. I'm okay with it though. I think it's fine. So the brown team is basically saying, hey, we still got it. Look at us. We picked on a smaller country. Yeah. They also have Iceland. They should probably be careful with that though. Last time they did something with Iceland, it caused a mini nuclear winter. Happens though. It happens. But here are the two new capitals, and you'll notice that they are safely within their own respective religion's territory. Most of the dark cyan team actually is within the border of the purple religion, but the mess that is this country, that is not the case. But they make sure to put their capital in safe territory, because that's what they're calling it. They're calling it safe territory. Our territory, not their territory. Remember, kind of notice how I'm wording this. This is how genocide and stuff starts. You got to create an us versus them mentality, and from there you just start killing them. Well, not really. There's like 9 other steps, but still. All right, so the genocide is happening, or the ethnic cleansing, whatever. It's happening within this country, and no one's really doing anything about it because no one really believes in doing anything about it. So now in comes the question of sovereignty. Are you willing to invade this country and kind of, hurt their sovereignty in order to stop a humanitarian crisis? Hey, I did a whole course on this in college. The question is unanswerable in the current system. So yes, countries could get involved to stop the genocide, or no, they couldn't, and respect the country that is the gold team. Why would you respect them? Well, because they're a sovereign nation, that's why. See how it kind of doesn't work out? If it's really confusing to you, don't worry, it's really confusing to me too. It doesn't make any sense. But that's just kind of how the world works. So instead of sitting here and twiddling our thumbs on it, let's go somewhere else. Let's go over here to the main three, the big three. Screw the big three. It's just me. So what I want to do here is I actually want to update the nuclear numbers, and now there's going to be something that happens out of this. So I'm not just doing this because it's a daily video thing. Something will come out of these updated nuclear weapons. Now remember, every nuclear power as of right now is massively pumping money into their nuclear programs in order to create more nuclear bombs. You could say that we're in the age of vertical nuclear proliferation, not a lot of horizontal proliferation happening, which is really good. And that means when, another country gains nuclear technology. That hasn't happened yet. There's only 4. So let's start with the old empire. What do they do with their nuclear numbers? Well, they go all the way up to 78 and 24. A lot more than 52 and 15. That's 26 more nukes and 9 of them on other soil. Now, where are those other 9 nukes at? Let's take a look. They will come over to the Farmers Union and they will put 3 in them, which leaves us with 6. 4 will go over to Iberia, giving them 7 and equalizing with the Western African country. And then finally, the last 2 will go over to Norway, giving them 7. And that's just kind of like, hey, here you go kind of prize. But there are the new numbers for the old empire. Obviously, they surpassed Russia and they have already surpassed China. But now it's time to update Russia, so who knows if this stays around. Oh, no, not at all. So they add 20 new bombs to their arsenal, 10 of which are on other soil, which obviously surpasses the old empire. However, the old empire is making up ground between them. The gap used to be a lot larger. Now it's only a matter of 4 bombs, which Russia has more of. But they did add 10 more bombs over soil, so let's take a look at where they put those at. So they will put 1 extra one in the West African country, which is absolutely hilarious because remember, the Iberian one just wanted to equal out with them, and now their enemy goes ahead and gets an extra one over them. But still, 15 bombs between them. I'm sure they can get rid of each other if they really wanted to. Now on over to Central Asia. This is where a majority of the bombs will be going. Remember, we have 9 more to disperse. So let's go ahead and put 2 in this country here, giving them a total of 4. That leaves us with 7, and we'll go ahead and put 2 in this one as well. Okay, so we've used 5, and now we have 5 remaining. So where are these remaining 5 nuclear bombs at? Russia doesn't have any more allies, well, at least nuclear allies near them. So where are these remaining 5 nuclear bombs at? The pink team and the brown team, they didn't gain any, and those are their only 2 remaining allies in Eurasia, or I guess Afro-Eurasia. Well, I'm glad you asked. Hey, Texas, how would you like to receive 5 nuclear bombs on your soil? Nuclear bombs have reached North America. this is huge because this is the first time that nukes have actually exited Afro-Eurasia. They haven't been in Australia or South America yet, and up until now, North America. And this is kind of like the match that you throw into the fire to start the fire that is the Cold War. Yeah, sure, it's already been happening, but it's been tense at times, so this is huge. This is like groundbreakingly huge. This is a turning point, the rising point, the climax of the Cold War, if you will. Nuclear bombs being put in Texas. This breaks a treaty which I might have talked about, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, but I actually not sure. I don't think I did, though. There was a treaty signed to keep nuclear bombs solely in Afro-Eurasia and to not allow for the expansion of nukes over to either the Americas or Australia. Now nukes have found their way into Texas, and this violates that treaty. And all of a sudden, everyone is pissed off at each other. And how do we settle violence? Well, we start wars, but not just yet. Or will we start wars? The old empire goes over to Russia, and they're like, hey, why'd you do that? Russia's like, hey, we can do whatever we want. Texas is our ally. There is no piece of paper that's going to tell me that I can't put my bombs where I want to put my bombs. And the old empire basically says bet. And so does China. China also says bet. Remember, China is in on this Cold War, even though they are a distant player between these two and their hatred towards each other. Don't worry, they will be getting involved very soon, though. In fact, maybe this episode. But going over to China now, speaking of, they have to update their nuclear arsenal as well. Oh my god. China has doubled their nuclear arsenal, and they also now have 15 bombs in their allies' territory. That is huge, and that honestly is giving worries to both of these countries, because how did they just double their nuclear supply in the matter of, well, one episode for us, but a couple of years for them? Maybe a year. I don't know. The timing of the series is kind of hard to judge. But everyone's like, whoa. How did you do that? And China's obviously not going to tell them, but let's take a look at where their 15 nuclear bombs are at. All right, so there are 7 in the red team, 4 in the gold team, and another 4 in the orange team, and I just realized something that is absolutely horrifying. Oh, I forgot to turn off anti-aliasing, what is it called? Alias rendering. Sure, we'll go with that. I don't have that on for the border between the Indian and orange countries, and as you can see, that has obviously made the border look a little weird, and that's very hard to fix. Yay. We now see where the updated nuclear numbers are at. China has now put nuclear bombs in their allies and also on the border of this mess. The brown team is probably hoping for some nuclear bombs right about now, because they are right in the middle of hell, and they will soon be turned to hell if this heats up anymore. But yeah, China has definitely beefed up their numbers. That has alarmed both of these countries. We can also now take a look at the brown team, the only remaining nuclear power in the world, which I have not covered. All right. 3. Yeah, their nuclear technology is not on the same level as the other big 3, and they also don't care enough to really develop any more bombs. So yeah, 13. Good job. All right, so let's head back down to Africa, because this has been a hot subject lately, and it's also going to continue to be hot because I want to get Africa involved for once. Sorry, South America, your time will have to wait. Same with you, Oceania. Sorry. But starting here, we actually have the creation of a new military alliance in Africa. This will be the first alliance that is domestic in Africa and not created by a foreign power, like, for example, the old empire, or I guess Russia. Well, actually, the old empire is technically also an African nation, so maybe that's not foreign, but they're mostly based in Asia, so I'm gonna go ahead and call it foreign anyway. Oh, what shape can I use today? Oh boy. Okay, I got one. The Parallelogram Alliance. Yes. I can't wait to say that word a bunch of times in every video. But the gold country will go ahead and create an alliance with none other than the Libyan country. I'm sure that's really surprising. Now, why do these two ally together? Well, they don't like a certain somebody, and that certain somebody is just so happens to be the strongest country in the world, the old empire. Now, what is their justification for not liking these guys? Well, they have impeded on both of our territories. That's why, of course, we know what happened with Libya. They got absolutely destroyed in World War II, and then, or no, that was the African Civil War. And then we saw, well, they actually didn't impede on these guys' territory. They just finished off the old government and took their land, which the gold country has a claim over. They're saying, hey, we should be able to unite all of the country that we were fighting a civil war with. Why did you take our land? You know what? Screw you. So that's their justification for that. So they create an alliance together, made a kind of defending Africans from the old empire. And guess what? One of them's doing ethnic cleansing against African citizens right now. But that doesn't matter. That's what they said to the international community. Ignore what we're doing within our own borders, because that's our business and not yours. However, how dare you invade another country? See how it doesn't make any sense? Yeah, It doesn't make any sense. But that's how it is. That's how things work. So now they will go ahead and present themselves to the rest of Africa saying, hey, does anyone want to join our anti-old empire, by the way, the strongest country in the world, alliance? No one says yes. And I wonder if it has anything to do with what they're doing within their own borders. Maybe. But I want to be sticking around right here real quick because guess who just backstabbed someone else? Oh yeah, the gold team declares war on the blue team over here. And the blue team's like, bro, what? Oh, I didn't update the provinces. I should probably do that. Oh, I didn't do it over. Okay, well, my bad. But the gold team will start an invasion into the Horn of Africa, or Somalia, I guess. And this invasion goes very well. In fact, the dark science / blue team here is completely destroyed. That's really it. They had no chance. And it's about now that I think it's important to go ahead and mention that the leader of the gold fascist team is a very military-minded person. They have a very good understanding of military. They themselves fought in the Civil War. They were a commander in the Civil War. And they were also a strong military figure prior to the Civil War. Now they made their way up in the Franks, and they are now, of course, the ruler, or I guess I'm going to call it a dictator of this country. Their military is very, very skilled and efficient, and that serves as a threat not only to Africa, but the old empire. And they might have them on the list that basically says, hey, we should probably not mess with these guys because they could really do a lot of damage to us. Anyway, let's take a look at the peace treaty. And in this peace treaty here, we see full annexation. Yeah, no need to do a peace treaty. They're dead. We'll try to fix this, though. That looks bad. I wonder, okay, that worked. Perfect. Yeah, sometimes they kind of bleed over for some reason, and I hate when that happens. But I fixed it here. Good job, me. Now we don't have to fix the province map because there are no provinces to fix. Good stuff. But I will honestly go over this real quick just because. All right, something like this works. So I created about 2 new provinces, and then as for the rest, we just need to switch the colors around. So the gold team will get all of these pieces of land, and then the purple team will get this. This isn't like an official treaty or anything. This is just me like fixing the map, so it looks better when we do this. Sort of. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Now it's fixed. So the balances of Africa have, of course, been shifted up following this scenario. There's now a few countries which should probably be a little bit worried. More specifically, anybody over here or anyone that isn't pink for that matter. But on the topic of that, let's do some updating here. So, of course, the fascist country, they've unfortunately been around for a while, and what that means is that they've been committing their atrocities for a while. So we actually see these little groups here, they start to diminish greatly, and they all go all the way down to just this little smithereen, this tiny little community here. And we see this one go from this down to this, and this little thing completely disappears. And as for the other groups that exist within this country, their borders are all pushed back greatly. Now, of course, they can't do too much pushing back, or eradication in this case, because they're getting a little close to the borders of some other countries, and those countries also just so happen to be members of the brown team. So they have to watch their backs basically for a possible coalition from either the orange and the green Tanzanian country. And the red team over here is an interesting one. They don't really have like a major religion. In fact, they're made up of like 4, but they do have the brown religion in their country as a major religion. Therefore, I would not try to mess with them if you ever so chose to do so. But yeah, the ethnic cleansing is definitely taking place, and it's definitely having its effects across the region. And even now, just weeks after taking over the purple country, we see the effects start to spread into them, as any members of the purple religion just suddenly disappear. They don't exist anymore, and that is by terminology of the gold fascist country. So while the world is very aware of what is taking place, they are very reluctant to take steps to prevent it. And this makes a few countries mad, mostly predominantly purple and brown countries, like India, for example, the leading brown country, because of course that is where the religion stemmed from. We also see countries like South Africa mad about this because, hey, we have actual African citizens being murdered because they have a different religion than the government. This is an atrocity. But unfortunately, we're too far away to really do anything about it. So you better watch your back, buddy, because we're coming. We might have to go through a few countries to get to you first, though. That's honestly a lot. So now we move over here to Asia, where we have continued conflict happening in this area. So first of all, we have Russia doing an invasion of another country for like the 3rd or 4th episode in a row. Not really, but it kind of feels like it. They will be invading I guess this world's equivalent of Tanatuva. So the invasion begins, and as you could probably guess, this goes extremely horrible for this country. Ignore it going into the green one because that's not actually happening, but they are wiped off of the map, and they are fully annexed by Russia. All right, you are neutral, says everybody. And unless your name is Korea, everyone that is neutral in Asia has been touched in some way Don't take that out of context. Other than like you, but you have history, and I guess you guys, but you're protected by India. And okay, well, you get my point, but mainland Asia. Neutrality is dead here. Can't be neutral. So hey, we have a proposition for you. Russia's going to invade you. We know they are because our satellites tell us they're building up for something else. And I highly doubt they're invading us because that would be stupid and also suicide. So here's the deal. Russia's going to invade you, and we don't want them to get you because then they would have a very strategic point on us. They would have this area right here, which you could put a ton of nuclear bombs in, and then of course strike every single one of China's allies with relative ease. That's an issue. That is a strategic issue. And honestly, if you don't like listen to what we're about to say, we're going to invade you before Russia does. So listen to what we're going to say. Basically, you should unite with the gold country. You guys are members of the same religion, if that's what you care about. And additionally, you are ranked very low in the world, whereas the gold team country is, well, they're ranked pretty mid, on the lower end of mid, but still better than you. So uniting with them would not only give you a better economical opportunity, but it would also protect you from a war against either myself or Russia. What do you say? Good thing there are smart people running that country. I think I would probably do the same thing. So this country unites with the gold country, foiling Russia's plans and also putting a little bit of tension between themselves and China, or should I say raising the tension between themselves and China, as well as China's allies. So now Russia's kind of mad at these guys, saying, hey, you just stole our kill. Why would you do that? Ha! Says China. Laugh and point at Russia, guys. But this is actually a very big point in the series now, because Russia can no longer expand. Well, I mean, they can go into Siberia, but they don't have interest in doing so. That really only leaves them with Europe. They're not going to invade their own allies, and you really can't go after China or the old empire without starting a nuclear war. There's Finland, but Finland is kind of allied with Norway, and Norway is of course allied with the old empire, so that creates a weird power circle that you don't want to get involved with. You have your two puppet states, why would you touch them? And then you have this guy. You can go after them. And that's realistically Russia's only option, but they're not really looking to expand as of right now, so that won't happen at all. Anyway, Daily Britain update. The blue country has just collapsed. Dang, that sucks. They weren't able to successfully set up their government in a way that would function properly like any other country in the world does. They try to do something completely different based off of their own methods, and it didn't work. And they just collapsed. Their government disappears, and the people are just kind of left scratching their head. And when that happens, you get a whole bunch of outsiders coming into your country. So let's take a look at how exactly they're divided up. All right, and oh, that's kind of confusing, but this is exactly what happens. So the brown team will get this land. The upper Scottish, more so upper English country will get this land. This country will get this land. And this country will get this land. And now the provinces make sense, thank God. So we also now notice a Celtic union kind of taking place. The Irish country has almost all of Scotland. Of course, the Orange country does exist, and they are just chilling. They are missing Cornwall. However, they have Wales and a majority of Scotland. So they're getting close, but I don't know if they'll ever achieve that. All right, so we're talking about Cold War. Nuclear bombs were a big part of the Cold War in real life. And let's go ahead and update our Cold War nuclear map. Let's start with China. Now, China has been rapidly building nuclear bombs as of lately. They have certainly increased their supply, and it is no different here as they move to 80 and 24. That is 20 new bombs, 9 of which are on the soil of their allies. 4 will be put in this orange country, doubling their supply and giving them 8. 1 will be put in the gold country, giving them 1 extra, up to 5. And only 1 will be given over to the red team country here, which means that there are 3 nuclear bombs that aren't in any of these 3 countries. Where are they at? Oh god. China has now put nuclear bombs in Mexico, which also breaks the same treaty that Russia broke, meaning that there are now 8 nuclear bombs in the Americas when there really shouldn't be. So now it's pretty much fair game for any other country that has nuclear bombs, which are only the Brown and Old Empire, to put nukes in North America as well. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. The Old Empire has just added to the supply, going from 78 and 24 all the way up to 96 and 34. That's 18 more nuclear bombs, 10 of which are not on their soil. 5 will be given over to the Farmers Union, or White Country, whoops. And the other 5 will be given to America. So now all 3 of these countries over here have nuclear bombs, and remember, they all 3 have beef with each other, so this could get very ugly should it ever choose to. Alright, and now it's Russia's turn to go ahead and add to their nuclear supply. They go from 82 and 28 up to 102 and 38, which is 20 more bombs. 10 of which are not on their soil. Russia is the first country in the world to surpass triple-digit nuclear bombs, with the old empire trailing by just 4 and China trailing by 20. They will add 2 nuclear bombs over here to West Africa, giving them 10. 4 more go over to the dark green team, giving them 15. And finally, the brown country here will receive 4 bombs for themselves. Remember, they are right in the middle of this thing. They border all 3 alliances, so it's about time they get their own nukes, and they do. They get the last 4 that Russia just produced. So these are our updated nuclear numbers here, and oh yeah, we can't forget the brown team, of course. They're gonna add 2 more, giving them 15. Not much. Still enough to do some damage though, if they so chose to do so. But these are our nuclear numbers, which are now updated. And now we head over down to Africa, where we have yet another war taking place. This continent has been hot in the last couple of episodes, and it will continue to be so as the Cold War gears up and kind of takes place elsewhere. So countries like Russia, the old empire, and China, they are all kind of beefing up their supplies and forces right now. And while they're doing that, you know, they're not obviously doing too much. You know, they're not going to war because they have to focus on buffing up their interior themselves. So we can kind of take a look at some of these other events taking place across the world, and a lot of them have been taking place in Africa. But essentially, we have the Green Economic Alliance here, which includes these 3 countries going down, or also the Dark Cyan team as well, but they go down to this part of Africa here in Sub-Sahara, and they're basically like, hey, we're trying to impose our will on you. Basically, you should switch your currency to our currency so we can help you. And we understand that you might be a little reluctant in doing so, so we're going to say this. If you don't switch to our currency, we're going to invade you. We're running a little low on resources. Well, we're not running low, but we need some resources for something that might be happening soon, and you have a lot of resources. So either you join our alliance and you give us those resources at a discounted rate, or we invade you. Pick your poison. All right, these guys will fold. These guys are actually... pretty sure they were allied with the Mediterranean country here. Yeah, not anymore. They fold instantly and convert over to the West African Economical Alliance. And this gold country down here folds as well. Now, in response to the threats over here in Central Africa, some other African nations will go ahead and also join some economical alliances, which may not be the same as the Star Alliance. Basically, they're seeking protection from other powers. So we have this central blue country joining up in the South African Economical Alliance, and this pink country will join up in the Old Empire's Economical Alliance. So Africa is becoming divided in very many ways. Economically, it's divided. Politically, it's divided. Religiously, it's very divided. And even military-wise, it is very divided. If you take away like the alliance layer, Africa looks very bland, but as soon as you put that back, wow, there's a lot. So these 2 countries here, they didn't apply, or they didn't really listen to what the Western African country said. So they're going to get invaded. The orange country will declare war on them and swiftly move into the country. They are no match, mostly because they don't have the resources or even the manpower and equipment that the orange country has from their ally, which is the Western African country. So they are immediately invaded and instantly fold. And then this operation continues into the purple country, and they are also completely annihilated. Like I said, we can see they didn't join in on that alliance, and that is why these 2 countries no longer exist on this map. And in this peace treaty here, it's pretty simple. The orange country will get a majority of the spoils from this war, since they did pretty much all the work. And then we have the gray country, which just joined the alliance, getting this land, and the gold country, which also just joined the alliance, getting this land. Now, you might be wondering, hey, this is an economical alliance. Why are these guys getting land? Well, it's kind of like here you go, like a consolation prize, like saying, hey, thank you for joining our alliance and doing the right thing. Hey, the rest of Africa, look, if you join our alliance, there are some benefits. These guys just got free land. So in order to, I guess, prevent any future wars from happening, they're basically setting an example for their alliance, saying, if you just join us, you don't get invaded and you even get some benefits, but if you don't join us, then you get invaded. I'm not sure if that works too well with the rest of the African nations that are neutral at this point, but we'll have to see in the future. But for right now, 2 less countries exist in this world. And at this point, they also want to go ahead and make something official. The cross team will go ahead and get itself a brand new member, being the orange team. Now, technically it was the Atlantic country over here that kind of facilitated this war of expansion. They just used the orange team, which is like their own ally outside of the cross team, to facilitate it and go through them. But now they went ahead and went to Russia, and they were like, hey, let's go ahead and add these guys to our alliance because they are actually pretty strong, considering their region at least. And Russia had no objections towards that, so they gained themselves a new member. And I think I've brought this up before maybe, but if not, I do want to go ahead and say that the puppet states here, you know, like the old empire's 2 puppet states, they have one in Central Africa, one over here in Iran, and then Russia has 2, both in Germany. These guys are automatically a part of their respective alliances, so these guys are obviously in the Square Alliance because they are protected by the old empire. An attack on this country is an attack on the old empire, which is an attack on the Square Alliance. alliance. So that is kind of how that works. I think I brought that up before, but I have been seeing, more comments bringing it up. So I thought I would address that just once again, once and for all. The puppet states are a part of their host countries' respective alliances. Anyway, let's go back down to the Horn of Africa, once again staying in this continent because there are a lot of things happening here. This country, it's time to update this map again because they've done some work. Some really bad work, but work nonetheless. So these groups, they're gone, and so are these guys. And I'm going to go ahead and do some opacity here so I could actually see the borders, but slowly but surely, this group begins to shrink even more. Now, they are still within their respective borders, but as you can see, the ethnic cleansing of the brown religious group is continuing on, and it is getting worse and worse. I think you guys can probably very vaguely see like the borders of the country. If not, I do apologize, but they look something like that. And within their borders, this is the only populace of the brown team or the brown religious team that still exists. And it is still getting smaller and smaller as I speak. I guess I could also do this so you can kind of see what it looks like now. This country was a majority brown team religion. It is now a majority pink team religion. The ethnic cleansing is very successful for these guys. It also is now creating a very large migrant crisis. Hundreds of thousands of people living within the borders of the gold team's tyranny are attempting to flee into outside countries in Africa, mostly being the Tanzanian country down here, but also including the orange country and the red country. Now the red country, I think I said this in the last episode, but they are a very religiously diverse country, and they are accepting of these refugees. I think I said migrant crisis, I meant to say refugee crisis. But they are very accepting of it, which kind of creates some issues within their country, because not everyone is on board with it. Remember, with a lot of diversion becomes a lot of opposition, and the red country is seeing a rise in opposition with these policies. But still, no other country in this region is going to do anything about it, but it's getting very close for some countries to take action. Like the Tanzanian country, for example, they have started to mobilize some of their military and put military assets in this region over here, which could be threatening if you're these guys, but you're a very strong military country, so these guys may not be that big of a problem for you, even if you are a brand new country with a little bit of an issue from within. But otherwise, nothing else will be happening in Africa in this episode. Something will be happening over here in North America, though. Nothing bad. But the Central Canadian country will go ahead and join the Trapezoid Economical Alliance. Remember, I believe I said, or I'm pretty sure that I said, in fact, I know that I said that they were in the process of joining this economical alliance. They have finished the ratification process, and they have officially joined. And this is, once again, this is an alliance which forces you to change your currency over to a national current or an international currency that all of these countries share. So this economical alliance is growing larger and larger, and now the Alaskan country has started the process to join, as well as the Greenland country. So if you will, this is pretty much our equivalent of the EU, just in its early stages, because an EU over here would not work. Europe is a little bit too divided to really have any kind of unification or large economical alliances for that matter. Oh, and another thing. So a lot of you have been talking about ideologies in the comments as of lately, and I'm gonna go ahead and be honest with you, I kind of failed at addressing ideologies. Now, I might have said that, the brown team is a monarchy. It was a monarchy, but this is like, I don't want to give you an exact year because I don't know what year it is. I'm gonna go ahead and say it's like the 90s at this point, the 1990s, maybe the 1980s at this point, meaning that a majority of the world in real life was democratic at this point, or leaning really close to getting towards full democratic, or a majority democratic, I guess. It is a little bit different here. Now, the old empire, they are a democracy at this point. They have elections every 6 years. Russia is a democracy at this point. They have elections every 6 years as well. India is a democracy. China is a democracy. Korea is. I'm just gonna go ahead and name off all the major powers and their ideologies. The brown team is still a monarchy. Norway is a monarchy. Iberia is a democracy. The Dark Side team is a democracy, although a very limited one, in fact, a flawed democracy. West Africa over here, they have a dictatorship. These guys, they have a weird kind of democracy happening. It's sort of like a democracy, but the leader keeps installing himself in power, so it's kind of also a dictatorship. These guys have a military dictatorship. Purple team has a monarchy. Texas has a democracy, and so does America, as well as Mexico. So these are all democratic countries, but they have very large outside influence, so there might be a lack of trust in that system. South Africa, they have a monarchy. or it's like kind of a monarch or constitutional monarchy, so it's like England, I guess. They have a monarchical figure, however they are technically an elected democracy. However, the king can sometimes overrule their prime minister, so it's like a functioning constitutional monarchy, but sometimes it's just a straight up monarchy. And I think that's all the major powers that I should probably address now. Will I remember this? Probably not. But yeah, I'll try. And that is actually going to do it for today's video. Now, before I go into the outro, a very important event is taking place within the Old Empire. An election is upcoming, and it's actually an election that is a little bit different from any past elections so far. On the ballot, there are two candidates which are having a very close race. One candidate is going to be considered the Cold War candidate. Now, basically, ever since the Cold War has started, the Old Empire has elected these same type of people over and over again. They have all been wanting to continue on with the Cold War. They don't want to stand down to Russia. They don't want to look for a peaceful alternative. They want to keep going in the Cold War. In this election, that candidate does still exist. It's the same kind of person, but their opposition this time is someone that wants to end the Cold War and wants to have a very peaceful world, one in which the Old Empire and Russia aren't beefing anymore. The election is very close, but ultimately, on the day of election day, the candidate wins. Which candidate? The one that wants a peaceful world. The candidate that wants to continue the Cold War with Russia and China loses their election, and finally, the Old Empire has a representative that wants world peace. This is going to shake the balances of the Cold War and definitely change some things up. Now, the Old Empire holds its presidential elections every 6 years, and every 6 years they have elected a candidate which wants to continue the Cold War. So, you know, the Cold War with Russia and China that has been ongoing, mostly because the Old Empire has been unable to elect somebody that wants a peaceful world until now. They just held an election and a different person won. They have a different ideology and they want peace across the world. They want to settle their differences with Russia and China, and they have a ton of really cool policies too. Said policies include cutting down on nuclear weapon production and just getting rid of nukes once and for all. They also want to give reparations to any countries which they have done bad to, such as Libya and the Green Team, and a ton of other very diplomatically friendly policies, and the world is really looking forward towards this. Seems like a great guy, right? Both Russia and China are very optimistic about this new leader. However, if we know anything about how this works, is that they're definitely going to backstab this person, and they kind of see him as weak, so we'll have to see how that works. But for now, let's go ahead and get our daily updated nuclear weapon numbers in, because he hasn't stopped production just yet. So the Old Empire will go from 96 and 34 all the way up to 133 and 51. That is 37 new nuclear bombs, 17 of which are going to be put in their allies' territory. So let's take a look at where those new bombs go to. Iberia will be receiving 5 of them, putting them all the way up to 12. The White Team will receive 3 of them, putting them up to 18. Norway will also receive 3, putting them up to 10. And finally, America will get the last 6, putting them all the way up to 11. So there are all of the Old Empire's nuclear bombs and all of them mapped out. We can now take a look at what Russia has done in the meantime. They have added 30 new bombs, putting up to 132, and 12 of them are on their allies' territory. So let's take a look at where they put those at. 6 of them will be going over to the Brown Team, giving them a total of 10. 2 will go to this Lime country here, giving them 6. And the last 4 will be given over to Texas, giving them a total of 9. So as you'll notice, the Old Empire has finally resurpassed Russia in nuclear bomb totals. Only by 1 though, and their numbers are actually very similar. Only 1 more total and 1 more on their allied soil, and that's kind of interesting. But now we can go ahead and take a look at China and their production numbers. They have 80 and 24 going all the way up to, good God, they go all the way up to 120 and 44. That's 40 new bombs and 20 given to their allies. That's a lot. And where exactly do they put those 20 new bombs? 8 will be given to this red country, giving them a total of 16. 2 more will be given to the orange country, giving them a total of 10. 3 will be given over to this gold country, giving them a total of 8. And the final 7 will be given over to the Mexican country, giving them a total of 10. So there are our updated nuclear weapons. Oh wait, the Brown Team, can't forget about them. They had 2, giving them 17. But these are our updated nuclear weapons, and it might also be the final nuclear update we do. Who knows? Not making any promises. But let's get to the end of the Cold War now, because that's very important. All right, it's been about a month since that guy got elected. He is now being inaugurated into power. It is January 1st, 1990, and the Old Empire's president comes before his nation and begins his speech. In his speech, he promises an end to the Cold War and an end to hostile relations with both Russia and China, and also promises improved relations with countries like Libya, the Dark Green Country, and much of Africa. He also announces that he plans on getting involved with the genocide ongoing in the Gold Country. Kind of surprising coming from him, but most other people are in support of it, especially India. India's leader is in contact with the president-elect before his speech, basically just praising him for his effort and commitment to ending this genocide. In his speech, he also talks about possibly going back to the old ways and even becoming friendly with countries like Russia and China, and advancing humanity by going to space, exploring other planets. And basically, this guy is set on the future, and it seems like that he is basically already going to win re-election. This is a people's person, and he has very, very good policies. Towards the end of his speech, though, something very unfortunate happens. While getting the crowd involved and rallied up, he is shot at, and unfortunately, he is assassinated. His bodyguards scramble to save him, but unfortunately, it's too late. He was sniped from a very long distance away, and immediately the National Guard in the capital of the old empire will be mobilized in order to find the sniper. Meanwhile, the vice president will take place of the president and be sworn in as the nation's next leader. The vice president also shares these same values as the president. Eventually, though, they will find this sniper, and when they find him, they are absolutely taken away. The sniper seems to be of Western European descent. However, the gun that he's using is very concerning, as it is from Chinese origin. Immediately, the old empire will go to China and be like, yo, did you just kill our leader? China will deny such claims, stating they had nothing to do with the assassination of the old empire's leader, and they will even go as far as to say that they were looking forward to working with the person. The old empire remains skeptical, and after digging through the sniper's belongings, they find even more Chinese products, but even some Russian products as well. So now it seems like these two conspired together in order to take out the leader of the old empire and bring about a form of unrest and instability within the old empire. Now, when a leader is lost in the old empire, they don't have the same system as the United States has. Now, I did say the vice president was elected to president, but that is only temporary, as the old empire holds special elections in case of a leader's death. So the vice president isn't guaranteed leadership. They will be a temporary leader, but they will not be permanent. They will not serve the full 6 years. So the old empire will now have to hold even more elections. Meanwhile, they will mobilize their military in case of any additional attacks. This is really concerning for some countries, and it will also bring about mobilization of some other armies in fear that they will be invaded. But the old empire is now going to hold their second election within the past 3 months. This time on the ballot remains the other person that the assassinated leader beat. So he's the Cold War guy. He wants the Cold War to continue, and the person in place of the person who got assassinated is his vice president. So he is running for the full 6 years. He already is the president, but he's going to run so he can earn the rest of the 6 years. And in this election, something very unfortunate happens. And no, it's not another assassination. A very good smear campaign is ran by the Cold War candidate, and it makes the vice president humiliated. Whether the information spread is true or false, it really disgusts the people of the old empire, and when the election is held, it is a landslide by the Cold War leader. He is elected to president of the old empire, and he has revenge on his mind. He wants the Cold War to continue, but he also wants to punish both Russia and China for assassinating the previous leader. Even though they were from different political parties and didn't share the same views, they do still want revenge for their previous president. So now comes the inauguration day. This time it's held within the leader's house, so it's not an outdoors event. It is sort of a private event, although there still is an audience outside. It's being broadcasted outside through the doors. It's just that they can't physically see the person getting inaugurated because of concerns of assassination. He becomes the president, and something unfortunate happens. The leader of Russia is assassinated. On the day of the inauguration, while the inauguration is happening, in fact, right after the inauguration is happening, and this is going to draw up a lot of conspiracies, because as soon as this guy gets inaugurated, the other dude dies. So that's kind of sketchy, right? But in Russia, the leader was doing his normal military parade in their capital, kind of in response to the old empire's mobilization. They wanted to scare them. But the leader was in an open-top car and was shot. He did not make it. Russia will do the same thing the old empire did. They will go ahead and inaugurate their vice president to president, and they don't hold special elections. These guys do it like the United States does. The vice president just takes over for the president. And this dude is crazy. He thinks the old empire was behind this, despite them not catching the assassin, unlike the old empire did. They really think it was the old empire trying to get their revenge on the Russians, even though the Russians had nothing to do with the assassination of the old empire's leader. So now he's going to be like, hey, old empire, you guys are, you're done. Russian tanks will now move towards the border of the old empire, as well as their country over here, the white team. And with these Russian tanks on the border, the old empire will be forced to respond by also putting their tanks on the border. So from all their military bases come the old empire's armies, and they now point guns, cannons, and tanks at each other. And it's really not looking good right now. In addition to Russia's response, the old empire will also set tanks and personnel on the border of the green team, as well as the brown team. So now the border between these guys is well armed, and it begins to escalate even further as the allies of these two countries also start to move their personnel towards each other. So over here in Iberia and West Africa that happens, and over here in the Americas between Texas and America, they now put tanks on each other's borders, and it looks like this thing could go off at any moment. But the world is really hoping that this thing will cool down. India is a major pusher of peace. They want this Cold War to end more than anyone else, and they will go to Russia and the old empire and try to set up a conference over here in Finland. All three leaders lead there, that is the leader of the old empire, Russia and India, and they're like, hey, can we stop doing this? Can we stop the Cold War? I know we didn't invite China to this conference, but they're not really a part of this little conflict happening right now. We want peace to prosper in Asia, and you guys are really hindering us. And both leaders will take offense to this. Remember, both of these leaders are really bent on revenge. And if anything, this conference and the meeting between the two makes relations even worse. The leader of the old empire will storm out of the conference and fly all the way back to the old empire, and immediately will deploy the old empire's air force to do daily scouting checks along the border of Russia and all of their allies. With the old Imperial Air Force now mobilized, Russia will go ahead and mobilize their air force as well. And one thing leads to another, and now there are old Imperial ships along the coast of Russia right here. And likewise, the Russians will go ahead and put their boats in the Baltic Sea, making the Norwegians go ahead and also put their boats in the Baltic Sea. And now all three branches are pointing guns at each other. Anyway, this little standoff goes on for an entire month. And while this is all happening, the militaries of these two countries are building up, and subsequently, China is also now building up, because remember, three power system, these two can't do anything without the other one getting involved. Eventually though, something really bad happens. And it happens right here. Remember, I talked about this point. This is a very dangerous area. Essentially what we have happening here is two jets from the old empire accidentally fly in the Chinese airspace. Okay, well this isn't China, but this is China's ally. Same thing. While in this guy's airspace, they realize that they're in the airspace and immediately turn to go back. One of the jets makes it over the border of Russia's ally, while the other one lags behind due to unexplained circumstances. Whilst on the border though, Russian fighter jets now fly down here and intercept these two fighters and blow one of them up, go into Chinese territory and blow the other one up. With reports of downed aircraft, the old empire will send more fighter jets into Chinese territory, and in response to that, Russia will also send more of their jets into Chinese territory, and eventually a full-on air skirmish takes place between the two powers while over Chinese territory. The mistake is realized, and eventually, after a little bit of dogfighting, everyone will back out, so the old empire will leave and Russia will go back up north. But the damage is already done, because now China is very mad. You came into our airspace, you fought each other, and you put our sovereignty at risk. In response to this, China and their allies will begin to mobilize fully, and they also now point tanks and personnel at each other on the borders of their foes. Which means that there are now tanks pointed here and here, all the way through here, all around the brown team, of course, going up to the actual border between China and Russia. And well, I don't really need to explain the rest. You can kind of see for yourself where the Chinese and Russian tanks are now facing each other. And the same thing with the old empire too. They are also now facing each other. So the whole border over here is armed with personnel and tanks, and very dangerous. India will once again try to stop any escalation from happening. However, it does appear that they're a little bit too late, as the three powers are just waiting for someone to pull the trigger. Now, what about the people of all these countries? Well, the Cold War itself is fairly unpopular in every single country. That's why we just saw the old empire elect a dude who was very pacifist and peaceful. If we were to take a look at splits in the old empire right now, the Cold War right at the election was about 30-70. 30% were in support of the Cold War, 70% were against it. After the election and after the assassination, it is now about 50-50. So the old Imperium, their citizens, they are very, in support of revenge now, at least 20% of them shifted over to support. It's very surprising that this number isn't higher now, but it really does show how unpopular the Cold War is in the old empire. Now, as for Russia, it's a little bit different. Over here, it's about a 65 to 35 split, 65 in support of the Cold War. This is after the assassination. Before, it was about 50-50, but now the Russians are a lot more strongly in favor of the Cold War. Now, what about China? Well, before the event, it was a staggering 20-80, the biggest margin ever, 20% in favor, 80% against. The Cold War was very unpopular in China, but after the skirmishes over their territory, this number has shifted. It is now about a 40-60 split, 40% in favor, 68% against. So it is still unpopular here, whereas over in these two countries, it is gaining popularity. But that is kind of the citizen view of the Cold War. Now, for every other country in the world, not a single one has support for the Cold War. Nobody thinks that this thing is a good idea, even the allies of all of these countries. But now it has been a month since China has gotten involved in the standoff, and still no one has backed down. In fact, all of the numbers have been getting increasingly beefed up. And now comes the propaganda. The war propaganda. Media outlets in all three countries are now pumping out anti-Russian, Chinese, old Imperial, all the same propaganda to their citizens, and fear-mongering begins. In Russia particularly, there is a very strong movement saying the old empire is going to launch an attack at any time. In the old empire, they are kind of saying that Russia and China will team up against them to take down their empire. In China, their sentiment is mostly that they need to stop Russia and the old empire from their aggressive expansions, specifically Russia, but also the old empire because they're one of the largest countries in the world, of course. And they're fear-mongering that they could be next. So you can kind of see how this is now becoming full circle, and the fear-mongering is getting really bad. In fact, it's reaching the government levels. Now there are government officials in all three countries that are scared of the inevitable, which is what I just explained, or what they believe to be the inevitable. And this just leads to even more beefing up of the border between all three of these countries. But now we take a look at Russia. Something really bad happens here. And it's not even the fault of anybody. Whilst in a military base outside of their capital, someone notices 5 red dots that appear to be coming towards the capital city. Now, overlaying this map here, you can see that they're not really near any military bases, but they sort of are. In particular, this one right here is. It's right from a military base. And this one's right next to a military base. They're all kind of in close proximity. But the main point is that Russia's radar system picks up these 5 dots, and they all appear to be moving rapidly towards the capital of Russia. The general in charge of surveillance of the airspace will quickly go to their leader, and they will present the files stating that these 5 objects are rapidly approaching the Russian capital. And in fear of a nuclear attack, this general will then go to the president of Russia and will declare that the old empire has launched a series of nuclear bombs toward the capital of Russia. It is verified. They look at the radar once again, and those 5 dots are still on the way. And now the alarm system sounds across Russia. A nuclear attack is on its way. But the thing is, there is no nuclear attack. Those 5 dots are actually just 5 different Russian bombers coming back from their surveillance on the border, and the radar system for some reason picked them up as nuclear bombs, and the speed is a glitch. When the general first checked them, they were on the border over here when they actually were right here. And when they rechecked them, those bombers of course were a lot closer to the capital city, so it looked like that it had gone from here to here, when in reality the bomber has simply just went from here to here. That's why they got the speed confused. But that doesn't matter now, because Russia is now launching a counterattack on the old empire, and this one is for real. Russian nukes are now launched into old empire territory, and they begin to hit their targets. And of course, the old empire has been alerted about this. They are alerted about the Russian strikes, and they immediately start to launch their nuclear bombs back at Russia. Now, before everyone freaks out, I do want to take a moment to talk about the time period and the technology of these countries. Number one, and I think the biggest point so far, is that it's 1990-ish, and no one has been to the moon yet. Obviously, in real life, we went to the moon in the 60s, but that hasn't happened here. They've been in space, but they haven't been to the moon because they don't have the technology to get there yet. With that in mind, we can also take a look at their nuclear bombs and see that these nuclear bombs are about as powerful as, if not a little less powerful than the bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima. Sorry, the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima, because that one was a lot weaker than the one dropped on Nagasaki. But they are on the same level as, if not a little bit weaker than, the little boy bomb, which means that there won't be too much of a significant amount of damage, and it's not going to wipe out the whole world, as some of you have thought that it would. But where are these bombs hitting? Taking a look at the military base map and the major city map, most of the bombs are targeted at and hit their targets, which are military bases. Russia wipes out a majority of the military bases on the border between them and the old empire, but they also take the time to hit some of these major cities over here all around the old empire. Some nukes will even be launched from the green team's territory, hitting their major military base targets, and some will also be launched from the brown team, hitting a military base target and a major city. Now, as for the old empire, their targets will be very similar. They hit military bases around Russia. Now, I don't have them on the map here, and that's because I just forgot to do that. But they will also start to hit some of these major cities in the southern part of Russia, hoping to weaken the military presence in this region. They will also strike the green team. The green team's capital will get struck by a nuclear bomb, and as will the capital of the lime team. We also see a few military bases struck over here, as well as one of these major cities, and the nuclear war has begun. Taking a look at the map without the major cities and military bases, we can see exactly where these nukes have hit. But it's only going to get worse from here, because now the more longer range nukes are going to get involved. The old empire will strike first, now hitting major cities close to the Russian capital, but avoiding hitting the Russian capital itself out of fear of too much of a response from Russia. They basically just want to test the willingness of Russia. How far are they willing to go with their nuclear strikes? Well, Russia's not playing around. They will also hit these major cities within the old empire, even going down even close to the capital of the old empire, hitting some of these major military bases and major cities, really showcasing the strength of Russia's nuclear arsenal. They hit the old empire's biggest military base with a nuclear bomb, and this really makes the old empire mad because that was very important, and now it's gone. They will respond by hitting Russia's biggest military base over here in Kaliningrad, but that's kind of weird because the old empire's nuclear bombs, we're not too sure if they can really reach that far. Who launched that? Oh, the white team launched that. You might be cooked. The white team will now get struck by 2 nuclear bombs, make that 3, make that 4, and yeah, welcome to the nuclear war. Okay, so this is our updated map. Nuclear radiation is all over the place. And the world has passed out. They're scared. Everyone is terrified. This is bad. But now it's time to update the nuclear weapons because this is not accurate anymore. 34 nuclear bombs have struck the old empire, 6 of which were not launched by Russia themselves. And that now puts Russia at 98 and 44. And for these guys, the brown team used 2 of their nukes, putting them now at 8. And the green team used 4 of their nukes, putting them at 11. Now, as for the old empire, oh wait, no, I forgot these 4. Make that 94 and 44. But as for the old empire, they launched 32 nukes into Russia and their allies, which puts them at 101 and 50. Puts the white country at a grand total of 17. Now, of course, some of the nuclear supplies were damaged when these guys nuked at each other. That's what the targets were at military bases. They were targeting nuclear silos. So in reality, these numbers don't look anything like this. It looks something like this, with Russia going down to 59 and 32. All of the nukes within this country were destroyed, and 6 were destroyed in the green team, leaving them with 5. In the old empire, they go from this all the way down to 67 and 40, which means that 10 of the bombs in the Farmers Union were also destroyed, leaving them with 7. Lots of booms and lots of loss of nuclear weapons. But now it gets even worse. Russia launched a nuke or 2 more, hoping to hit the old empire from surprise by launching it from over here. Of course, the old empire's air defenses are all worried about this little shield that they have right here, mostly going like this. But Russia is hoping to go around said shield and go down through here. Issue: the nuke flies over the red team's territory, and like not too far from their capital city, it's shot down by a Chinese fighter jet, and the nuke hits the ground and it explodes. Russia has essentially just nuked the red team. I'll be taking that. And China and their allies are taking this as an act of war, straight up. China and their allies will send a formal declaration of war over to Russia, and the old empire will also finally send their official declaration of war over to Russia, stating that Russia preemptively had a nuclear attack on them and it was unjustified, and they will now serve said justice. So the old empire and China are not at war with each other, but they are both at war with Russia. Russia is a little bit worried about that. Of course, Russia will call its alliance to war as well, and now we have World War III. But there's something else that still needs to happen. A few weeks after the formal declarations of war, on a very crisp spring night in May, the old empire will authorize the launch of 20 nuclear bombs. These nuclear bombs, of course, will be going towards Russia, right? Incorrect. The nukes were actually pointed at China and their allies. Very soon, many nuclear bombs are hitting throughout China and their allies, and the last 5 will hit very close to home for China, being just outside of their capital, but they also hit China's biggest military base by complete surprise. And in a speech broadcasted to every citizen of the old empire, their leader comes on stage and announces the final war. The war to end all wars. The war of the greats. The old empire will formally declare war on China and is fully expecting a nuclear response from them. Oh, we also have to update this. I want you guys to take notice of something here. Something is very, very bad for the old empire right here. Let me know in the comments if you know what it is, but it's kind of obvious. Anyway, but World War III has officially begun. And what looked like the end to the Cold War in a very peaceful manner very quickly heated up into a very violent manner. The old empire sought revenge on both Russia and China for the assassination of their leader. Meanwhile, Russia had thought that the Cold War would always start from the old empire. They always believed that the old empire was just waiting for the right moment to strike them at any time, and they were sort of right. The old empire did strike at a very uncertain time, and at the right time. It just was on China instead of them. Well, the old empire thinks that this war is the final war. This war, if they can win it, will end all wars because the old empire will become the world themselves. The leader is sought out on territorial expansion and the elimination of any threat to their empire. As for China, they're hoping for the end of both the old empire and Russia and their imperial ways and rapid expansion. The World War III era begins in the next episode. But as for now, we'll be seeing a lot of fighting across the world, not just in Asia, but of course in Europe, Africa, and the Americas. If you guys did enjoy today's episode, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Go ahead and throw all of your Cold War predictions in the comments below. Let me know what you think will happen. Let me know what you want to happen. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. And of course, thank you to all our super fans. This includes Serminator, Augusto, King Cheese, a Norwegian, RS, Dale Martinez, Australian Geo Guy, America and Canada and UK, Zaylance, Lazo Does Nothing, Breezioid, Laser Tase, Nevada Garbage Trucks, Pablo Sigma Cat, Death Shredder X, Hammer Toad 45, CTG on YT, and DW Cool Dude. Once again, thank you guys.